Hello, hello. Welcome to today's session of Selling the Couch. I hope you are doing well, having an incredible day. So, today's podcast is about AI and specifically how do you use AI without sounding like AI? I know many of us as clinicians are wanting and are using AI, whether it's to help us write social media posts or blog posts, or if you're like a podcaster or a YouTuber helping you generate scripts. But I think the other side of this, which becomes the problem, is you look at some of this content, and especially if you've looked online, you're like, my gosh, that sounds totally like it was written by AI. And the thing I've been thinking a lot about is, for me, I try to, have these moments where I will look at my own feeling around when I see a post like that and how that might impact things like how I perceive the brand. And so I think there's a hesitation for many of us of like, okay, I don't really want to use AI because it does sound like AI. And then I just don't know that it will be authentic to how I want to come across. This was a dilemma that I had about 9 months ago. And to be honest, I was very averse to using any sort of AI tools to do anything. But I started running into some things on the personal front. I've shared this on the podcast, but we've got two sets of aging parents and caregiving responsibilities. I'm a dad as well, and with Susan back in the office, a lot of the pickups and drop-offs and shuffling to swimming and basketball and all those kind of things have fallen on me. And in many ways, it's kind of the life that I wanted, to be an active dad. But it's also meant that I've had to really think about how to streamline a lot of the things for STC so that I can free up stuff. The other side of this is, as Quiet Builder continues to build out, I'm seeing, we have our Quiet Builder newsletter, which if you haven't had a chance to check it out, definitely check it out over at sellingthecouch.com/quiet builder. But as that builds out and sort of the executive coaching side of what I'm doing starts to build out, how do I free up time? Well, I'm joined by my friend Dan Cumberland. Dan was previously on the STC podcast. He is a whiz when it comes to AI and using it in a way that is authentic to you. So Dan runs a cohort that helps small business owners incorporate AI into their business, but create workflows that are custom built for your business. So instead of using like templates, you actually get to figure out how do you actually implement this, and then go and work on it. Dan's team also helps you create custom workflows as well, and you'll hear this in the interview. He actually helped us create ones for STC. So both for the stuff that I post on LinkedIn, but also for a general STC branding doc. This is a fascinating conversation. We start by a lot of therapists being hesitant about AI. How do we actually start using AI without losing our voice? Dan introduces the Power Framework, which is a really interesting and a great framework to understand how to structure when you create these AI branding documents on your own. And then we wrap up with this question of like, for someone who wants to delegate parts of our content workflow, whether it's like maybe if you're like a podcaster and you want to like, have AI help you with scripting, how do you make sure that the final product still sounds like you? I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. So here is my conversation with Dan Cumberland from dancumberlandlabs.com. Dan, welcome back
What's up?
to Selling the Couch.
I'm
Oh my gosh.
so excited to be here. Thank you so much just for having me back. It's always so fun. So just really looking forward
Yeah.
to hanging out a bit.
No, absolutely. I'm so thankful for you on many levels. Thankful for your heart, your friendship, and just even this topic today, because I think so many therapists are very curious about AI, particularly related to content creation. So whether that's
Wow.
writing blog posts, social media posts, any of that stuff. But I mean, I remember initially getting started with ChatGPT. Gosh, it's crazy how fast these like it seems like made a lot of progress, but it hasn't been a lot of time, right? Like maybe
Yes.
8 months, 9 months.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, but it's I feel like a lot of therapists want to use these tools to be more efficient, but then there's that thing of like, oh my gosh, this totally sounds like it was written by AI. So I'm
Yes.
excited to, have the counter conversation, which is how to use AI without sounding like AI. And
Yeah.
you're doing some pretty amazing stuff in the world. So thankful for
Yes.
you. And yeah, excited to jump in.
Yeah, so excited for this conversation. I think for all the reasons you just named that, like, I think especially for therapists, and not just therapists, but anyone who feels like, they want to be mission aligned and authentic, and is AI like, giving work, having AI do things for you? Is it taking away from your authenticity, or is it being even deceitful, right? Like, I think it calls into question like some of these ethics of who we are, and how we work. And so I think it's a conversation that's near and dear to my heart, obviously.
And I think even the thing related to it, which is, am I being lazy for being
Yes,
like, being able to create months of content, in an hour or so that would have taken like many hours.
100%.
Um, yeah, so excited to jump in. I sent you some questions and maybe we'll just jump into this. A lot of therapists feel hesitant about using AI, worried it'll make their content sound like robotic or generic in some sort of way. How do you help someone get started using
Yeah.
AI without losing their authentic voice? Because I think the
Yeah.
authenticity is the biggest part of it.
Yes, yes. I think that's such an important question. The place where I think I'd like to start is at a high level before getting even into the tactics of what are the different ways that, if you're working with another person in your content creation process, what are the different ways that you would collaborate? It might start with a conversation like, hey, maybe I want to talk to a close friend and just brainstorm ideas to write content about, and maybe have them reflect back to me like, oh, you're good at talking about this, you said this or that, and that's super super interesting. Maybe it's having someone review a draft like, hey, I typed this up, what could make it better. Maybe it's writing, working with a copywriter or a ghostwriter where they understand who you are and how you write, and they write something for you, and then you review it and maybe touch it up and then post it. Maybe it's a copy editor who's like really just kind of fine tuning things, like changing punctuation and things along those lines. I like to think about the writing process as a process, and where along that process we can interject collaboration. And I think that's a really important place to start, because each of those points are places where you can use AI in the process. I think it's easy for us to think about using AI as just like a replacement for us at all. So it's just like, hey, ChatGPT, Claude, whoever, whatever, write this post, and then like that's done. You can do it that way, but that's how you get AI slop, if you want to use those words, or just content that just does not sound like you. And so, a better place to start is to think about, what is your current process? Where are the points along that process that could increase the quantity of what you produce, increase the quality of what you produce, and increase like the velocity, the speed at which you're producing? And how can you use AI as a collaborator in your process in order to speed it up? Then from there, we start getting into the tactical of like, how do you actually do that, and what it actually looks like, and prompting and context and all of those kinds of things. But at a high level, it's a really important reframe that is not just like handing off this part of your business, and for those of us who feel really connected to our work, this part of almost like this part of our souls, right, to like a machine to just replace us. But how do we build a system that speeds up the process, that enhances our insights, that brings us more of the gold that we're already creating, the content that we're already creating, surfacing the great ideas, refining those with us, in order to take the friction out of the process? I like to think a lot about friction and where we get stuck, where we slow down, where we feel like we're just staring at a blinking cursor, and think about how could we use AI to take that friction out of those moments in the content creation process.
Yeah, I love how you approaching it. I think there's a sense of, I mean, one, I love the use of the word collaborator, because I think one of the early hard lessons that I learned was, you know, if you, like you said, the slop is what most of us do at the beginning stages. And then
Yes.
there's also that inevitable anxiety that comes when you're like sharing, like what you just said. There's, oh my gosh, AI is now, could this take over? Right. But I think what I've learned is we're still kind of the brains of the operation, and our creative wisdom. It's
Yes.
like, how do you channel that and
Yeah.
use AI as this tool to communicate that inner wisdom? That's the way
Yes.
that I've sort of approached it. It sounds like it's a very similar way to how you think about it.
100%. And for me, my work with AI really comes from my belief that that everyone has something important to give to the world, and something important. I say, the way that I say, I have it on the back of my computer. I'll put it in the frame. There's a sticker. It says, you have something to say," and that's kind of my mission statement in the world and in my work. And that AI is a way to help us say it, to take out, again, I like to use that word friction, but the barriers, the in some ways, like, AI helps me as a content creator be the kind of content creator that I've always wanted to be, because it allows me to speak, to write, to create so much more freely than ever before. And that's what I want for people from this. That's not the only thing that AI can do, but it's a great starting place to really start to get benefit from it in our businesses.
Yeah, it's great. You helped us write, you helped us create two documents earlier this year. One was an STC branding guide. The second was a guide specifically for LinkedIn posts.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, I remember like looking at both of those, and particularly that branding guide. Like, you were able to capture our tone, values, the storytelling style that I love to employ. What's the process behind that, and why is
Yeah.
it such a foundational thing for creating aligned content?
Yes. Oh, it's so good. Yeah. I'll start with the second question first, of why it's so foundational, and then we can get into the process. The We have to know that when we're using AI, the way that these tools work, I call them machines. They're software. They are very sophisticated algorithms. We are, maybe to say it differently, you could think of it like a very sophisticated autocomplete. So when you're typing up on your phone, maybe you're texting a friend, and it suggests words to come next. It's a simple algorithm trying to predict what your next word's going to be. So when I say, see you, and it says soon or there, it, like, completes the phrase. That's what these tools are doing, but in a much, much more complex fashion. So first, we need to know that they're just predictively guessing what comes next, but it's based on the input and the information that they have. So right out of the box, you open an AI tool, and you ask it to do something. It's going to try to complete it based on what it knows about you, and then what it knows about everything on the internet, because that's most of what these tools were trained on, is just the internet. So if you ask it to do something like write a blog post, right, especially content creation, the first time it like feels like magic. It's like, whoa, that's actually pretty good. But at this point, for most of us who have been doing stuff on the internet, like, we've got a pretty good, keen sense of what that AI content like looks and feels like. So the magic is kind of drained out of that that experience, because we're like, yeah, that sounds like AI. So what we have to do then is in addition to like all of its general training, we have to give it enough information and guidance about who we are, what we're trying to do, who we're writing for, what the kind of piece that we're trying to create are, in order to sway it more predictively into our preferences and our direction. So I use just in general, when it comes to prompting, when it comes to creating some sort of work product, maybe it's a report, maybe it could really literally be anything. I use an acronym called the power prompting, and so it's an acronym. Each letter stands for a piece of the puzzle that if we check all these boxes, AI will know what to do. And I think it ties in well here. The P being the person or the persona, like who are you, what you're about, what your values are. The O is the other, who's on the other end of whatever this thing is. For the marketing context, it's your ICP. If it's something for a client, it's the client. The W is the work. What is the actual work thing that you're creating? The E is the expressions, which kind of connects back to maybe the P and the O of what's the kind of language that we use? What are the verbs? How do we phrase things? How do we turn a phrase? How long are our sentences? All of those kinds of things. And then the R is references. What are examples or templates of what the final product should be? And so if we check all those boxes, that's one way of making sure that we're giving AI all of this extra information in order to sway the algorithm, sway the predictive responses in the direction that we want them to go. And that's what we created for you, for the brand. One is the STC overall brand document. So that gives AI a really good understanding of everything that Selling the Couch is all about, so that you can use it in a very diverse context. And I don't know how much you've talked about the things that you're using, but I think it'd be really interesting if you haven't on the show before, just to dig in and just kind of pull back the curtain for folks on that, because I think that's super, super relevant. And then we layered on top another that's just specific to LinkedIn, because every platform has its own syntax, has its own formatting, and we also communicate differently in different contexts. So I speak differently on a podcast than I write on in my newsletter than I write on LinkedIn. So to give even more specific guidance for the AI for your work on LinkedIn, because that's an important platform for you in your content. So that goes, all of the second question of why this matters, but then we can get into the how. But maybe I'll take a breath before I go into how we create these kinds of things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I love that you're sharing it. And as you were talking, I kind of just pulled up both of these documents. So for example, with the branding voice, for me, there's several things that are very important to me. So for example, having an ethical framework, right? Always. So even you incorporated that into the branding document. So I'll even read how we did. So for example, it'll say ethical framework, always emphasize ethical considerations, present balanced perspectives. And then you cite an example. Before we talk about monetization, let's discuss how to ensure this serves our clients. And then a counter example, which would be this is what not to do. Here's how to maximize, profits at any cost, right? So basically what this is saying is, what this document is, as we employ this to create various forms of content online, whether it's blog posts, stuff for LinkedIn, even down to scripting podcast episodes, I always want to incorporate these sort of things into it. The translation or the practical side of this is, I don't have to go back and check, at the level of an editor. I can look at it and just be like, wow, this is really well aligned. And I think the magic of this branding document for us is, for example, my executive assistant has this branding document. So when, at this point with STC, a lot of my main job is to generate thoughtful questions for solo episodes and scripts for solo episodes. And I essentially then give this branding document to my EA, and she takes, for example, let's say our interview, right? She will take this branding document, take the transcript of this interview, upload that branding document, have this transcript, and it's then able to generate any number of LinkedIn posts that we need. It's able to write a blog post that's in our voice, all of these different things. And it saves so much time. But the bigger thing is this is, I think, something many therapists struggle with, which is if I'm not doing it, then it can't be quite right.
Yes.
Right. And this, I don't know, it's such an unlock. I don't even know if I'm communicating it well, but this has been such a game changer because it's not just like I didn't want to free up time to create more content. I
Yeah.
actually wanted to I wanted to free up time because there's like practical things that we're navigating, caregiving.
Yeah.
As quiet builder and all of this, the executive coaching side of my business builds out. I want to create space for that.
Yes.
I want to be a present dad and a present husband.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
don't want to be like doing all this stuff. And so, yeah, I'll stop talking there, but
I
that's
love
the
it.
way that it's, benefited me
Yeah.
personally.
Well, one thing I haven't really thought about is because I've been talking about Quiet Builder, and it's just been so fun to see you start to bring this idea into bring it to life. Um, and I haven't really even thought about like how much this tool for you may have freed up space, right, for you to even pursue that, to where it just made it maybe so that you could not just work in the business but work on the business more. And I hadn't connected the dots, like, oh, actually this might be a
Yeah.
one piece of a very complex puzzle, but that's
Mhm.
allowed you to take this new, start this new venture, which is just thrilling to be, play a small role in it alongside you.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like, I think that is one of the biggest things I didn't quite anticipate either, which is when you have somebody helping you with this, and whether it's and especially the combo of a virtual assistant or executive assistant plus a branding doc,
Yeah.
what it frees you up to be able to do. And
Yes.
ultimately, it's the creativity that it got freed up of like, okay, yeah, how do I go about this? That'll be in a whole other episode for another time. But like,
Yes.
I've been
Yes.
trying to think about like, how do I go back into the work without a traditional behavioral health model?
Yeah.
Because I do
Mm.
miss the work, and I feel like yeah, I mean, I feel like that's sort of the next chapter and trying to figure that out.
So cool.
I wanted to shift a little bit, Dan, if it's okay. I
Yeah.
love the power reference.
Yes.
But one of the big mindset shifts for me recently was realizing my highest leverage task isn't about writing LinkedIn post,
Mm.
right? It's actually creating long form content
Yes.
like podcasts, YouTube videos, right? So now with STC, we have both the STC podcast and then a STC YouTube channel. And then with Quiet Builder, the same thing, an audio podcast and a YouTube video. How can therapists use AI to support those high leverage tasks without
Yes.
burning out or micromanaging?
So good. Yeah. There's so many ways. And I've just been working on this a little bit. Um, Working on a YouTube channel myself, so getting into scripting and that kind of thing. But that's a great place to start, is using AI, one, to understand who you are, what you're about, who you're trying to reach, then use it to think about their pain points. And this is kind of getting into marketing and the psychology of marketing and psychographics and all of that. But what is the what are their pain points? What are their desires? What's the transformation that they seek? There's many different models that you can use. Job to be done, but using those kinds of frameworks, you can use AI to help you think about what are the things that they're interested in, and what's the suite of topics that I should dig into, that I can dig into, that maybe I haven't covered yet, and to help on a kind of a strategic level. Not that it's making the decisions for you about what kind of content to create, but even just to start and say, oh, here's 30 topics. I've hit maybe 5, 10, 15 of those, but like those rest of those, yeah, I don't know if I want to address all of those, but like 4 or 5 of them are right, like, are just ideas I hadn't even thought about. So definitely using it to help you hone your content creation process in a direction that really speaks to the needs and the desires of your audience is a very high leverage place. And then going from that to outlining and thinking about, okay, I want to create a video about this specific topic. Maybe brain dump. This is one of my favorite things to do with AI. I am not a very linear thinker. I'm much more of a network thinker. Everything's related to everything else, and sometimes I have a hard time putting it into a linear video where you have to talk in a specific order. but to just brain dump, here's all my thoughts, help me organize this, and then have AI, not only organize it, but then say, what else, what might I have missed that my ICP, my ideal customer profile, or my audience, what might I have missed that they would like to know? So using it to outline, so we're using it to brainstorm topics. We're using it to outline one specific topic. Then even going from outline into what's a good hook at the beginning, what's a good close at the end, to brainstorm and kind of fill in all those pieces, getting more and more granular. And again, some of this goes into your preference and how much of this do you want to be writing by hand. Some people like to have their videos all the way scripted and they just read them. Other people just want to have bullet points. So a lot of this kind of bleeds into your own preferences, but there's so many stops along the way where you can be using AI to accelerate the process, again, remove friction. And then once the video is done, very much like what you and your team are doing, extracting that content to repurpose it into blog posts, social posts, all kinds of other lead generation tools, all kinds of other things after the piece has been created. So that's how I begin to think about the process.
Yeah, that's so cool. But basically, I have within, I know this is not the full right way to do this, Dan, but hopefully forgive me. But within ChatGPT, I have a folder for the STC podcast.
Yeah.
And then within that folder, I have various things. So for example, podcast question generation help, right? So what I will often do is when I'm reaching out to guests, I'll be like, hey, here's the topic. Here are a few questions I'm thinking about. And I'll just let it, and then I'll say, okay, what other questions do we would be helpful?
Yeah.
I think sometimes, so that's one.
That's great.
And then if it's a solo episode, I do the same thing. I have a little section for script assistance. And often what I do is I'll say, hey, here's the topic. Here's, 3 of the points that I want to talk about. And then here's 2 points within each of those, points that I want to go deeper. And then can you help me generate a script? And I'm playing with both formats. So for STC, I have it as bullet pointed, just to kind of learn that. But then with Quiet Builder, the videos, I actually have it fully scripted out. Because they're 5-minute, 6-minute videos. And I feel like the ethos of Quiet Builder is so much around thoughtfulness. And so it just felt like it was important to script it.
Just have it really efficient and tight. Totally makes sense.
I mean, the tech side, a lot of y'all ask me how in the world do I do this? I think there's a bunch of different ways. What we do is I have a second screen. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm using a DSLR, but there's actually a second monitor that is being mirrored so I can see Dan. And then what I actually do is I use an app called Prompt Smart Pro to copy the transcript over into Prompt Smart Pro that AI has generated after I plug in the initial sort of perspectives. Then I stick my phone right here, right next to, so I can see my face on one side. I can have the phone right there. And Prompt Smart Pro is so cool because you can just, it scrolls the transcript. But the other cool thing is it has this AI feature, or I think it was a pre-AI feature, but if I pause or I want to expand on something, it will stop the scrolling.
That's
so I can just
cool.
expand a little bit. So
it's tracking your voice and your cadence. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's doing, I think it's called voice track. So that's basically what I do. And because my whole thing has been, how do I use AI to streamline what we do versus creating more overwhelm? So so I've got 2 final questions, but maybe we'll just in the interest of time, we'll stop here at this question.
Yes.
For someone who wants to delegate part of their content workflow, like turning a transcript into a newsletter or a YouTube script into a blog post, how do you make sure the final product still sounds like you?
That's so good. So there's a couple things I think are helpful to say right at this moment. And one is that like Claude now has memory built in, and if you're not using Claude or if you're not familiar with Claude, it's very much like ChatGPT. It's really good for writing. So if you really enjoy writing, check out Claude. ChatGPT also has memory built in. So as you use these tools, they are getting smarter and better at learning how you write and how you speak, but they still won't necessarily know what your specific the syntax again of that end product that you're trying to create is, and that's where these training documents can come in. And I have this AI training guide, it's aitrainingguide.com, where it'll teach you how to build these kinds of tools so that you can do this for yourself. But what you want to think about is what the end product is, and what the output is, and what the input is, and give AI both of those and say, I am trying to create here's my jumbled thoughts that I'm trying to turn into a script, and this is what a script looks like. This is how I like to format my script. Help me, create a training document, create the rules, the guidelines that I need in order to do that. So what we're doing is we're using AI to create the context and the prompt in order to use AI. So this is a little bit meta, right? We're kind of zooming out a level. Before we actually get into the chat to do the actual work, we're going to have another chat about the work that we want to do in order to get prepared for it. But really think about what are the inputs and then what are the outputs. And the more clear you can be about going from 1 + 1 = 2, from input to output, and giving AI those inputs and outputs, the better it's going to be at doing that, continuing to do that for you. And so in a lot of ways, like, this is one of the things about AI. When I teach AI, I have a cohort where I'm teaching people how to use AI, apply AI in their specific context, in their specific business. I thought it was going to be so technical and tactical, which it can be, but it all goes back to like thinking and how do we formulate what is it that we're trying to accomplish? What's the output that we're trying to create? So you want to start with that, getting clear on the inputs and the outputs, using AI to help create the prompt that you need in order to create the context and to kind of give it the guidance that it needs. Using a tool like what I have at AI Training Guide can help a lot. And so giving AI plenty of information about how you write or how you create in that specific context is that key piece. And that's where you kind of started with this bit about memory, is that these tools are learning how we like to write and talk, but we also, in order to make sure that the end product is as close to the way that we communicate as possible, we have to feed it tons of examples of what our writing, what our voice sounds like, so that it can have a good understanding of that. And that's why a tool like what we created for you with STC is so important, because otherwise we would have to be feeding it hundreds of hours of your podcast every time you wanted to create a simple LinkedIn post. So instead we're trying to distill it down into this brand voiced artifact. But if you don't want to do all of that, just give it a lot of examples is a good place to start. And then once you have that working, think about how can we distill this down. Use a tool like what what I provided at aitrainingguide.com that can help a lot too. But it's all just, what are the inputs, what are the outputs, and what are the style references.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I almost think it like Chloe is like really into Legos now, and so almost like you have to build the piece by piece with one brick at a time. If you try to do it all together, I think it makes these leaps that really make it not sound what you want. So love how you're thinking about that. Dan, you're doing some pretty amazing stuff. You've got a cohort running. You help practices, businesses create these branding kits, all of those. Tell us a little bit more about that work, and then how we can reach out to you if we're interested.
I love it. Yeah. So I have a cohort. I already mentioned that, I'm the goal of the cohort is to come alongside business owners in a, done with you kind of fashion, people who really want to understand these tools in depth and build the specific workflows and the tools that they need in their own businesses. And the thing with AI is that it can do so many things. It's like, there's so many possibilities, but how do we go from like where I am right now to like realizing those possibilities. And that's what the cohort helps you cross that chasm. I also build these kind of workflows for clients. Often starts with some sort of branding artifact, like we built with you for selling the couch. But then also on top of that, we build all kinds of other workflows from systems, from client delivery work, all kinds of things for all kinds of different businesses. So that's much more of a done for you service. I have a new website that I think will be launched by the time this goes live, which is dancumberlandlabs.com, where you can dig into all of my work there. I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. Just search up my name there. But since we've been talking so much about these AI systems, I've already mentioned the AI training, or the AI training guide.com is just a great place to start if you want to dig in deeper into how do we build these kind of training, get AI all the context it needs to do the things it needs to do. But more than anything, I just love helping people and love the people that are in your world, Mel. They're such good, kind people with a heart to serve, and those are the kind of people that I want to see win. So would love to connect and help be a resource for anyone who's listening.
Awesome. Dan, appreciate you, brother, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much, Mel.
Bye. Hey there. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Dan, and especially if you have been trying to navigate this world of AI, particularly related to content creation. I hope that today's podcast session has just been incredibly helpful for you. As I shared in the intro, I was very skeptical about AI, but the biggest thing for me is I want to still preserve my voice. And so if it wasn't clear on the interview, I think a lot about like 10x leverage, like high leverage. So what are the tasks that Mel needs to be doing that only Mel can do, but also multiplies the impact down the line, right? So for example, with STC and with Quiet Builder, what I've realized the two biggest leverage things that I could be doing in terms of the content creation side is to come up with ideas, script them based on my own life experiences, business experiences, wisdom, and then record the actual content. And from everything else from there, my EA takes over with the help of AI to create, LinkedIn posts and blog posts and all of those kind of things. And it has freed up so much time because now I can, for example, with Quiet Builder, those videos right now tend to be about 5 to 8 minutes long. And I can literally record, 2 months worth of content in an hour sitting, and then I don't have to worry about it again because I've got both AI and my executive assistant just helping me delegate stuff. Practically why this is important is starting in January, with especially Quiet Builder, this is another episode for another time, but I'm learning to play golf, and this is a sport that I've been wanting to play for a number of years, but it's part of a larger thing of I want to do something that combines golf with executive coaching with brain spotting. So essentially playing golf on a golf course, but incorporating executive coaching and brain spotting into it, because golf reveals a lot of how we handle stress and pressure. And so I want to create some time to do that. I'm not going to have I'm going to have just one day of executive coaching clients, likely 1 to 2 a day, nothing beyond that. But the other thing is I want to free up another day for me to play, and then another day for me to practice. So I'm kind of going all in on the golf journey. And this is what AI has practically enabled me to do, is just to free up that time so that I can really design it around my family and my health, because I didn't want golf to turn into like something that I squeeze into a weekend, which is then going to squeeze out family time. Definitely connect with Dan. Dan is a wonderful soul, high integrity person, especially if you're wanting to incorporate this into your private practice. Highly recommend it. Go through the cohort. And if you are like, hey, I just need a branding document created, can you do this? Reach out to Dan as well, because it's been such a game changer for us. I can't even put correctly into words how much of a game changer. I mean, it is literally given me like hours and hours and hours every week back. And I think I'm just so grateful for that. Connect with Dan. Again, Dan's information is over at dancumberlandlabs.com. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.